Good morning. I'm Holly Magnuson, and this is Ask the Security Guy, uh, recorded live on not May, but June 5th, 2019. This is episode number 44. If you're watching live, you'll be able to do the chat that you should see on the right-hand side of me. You will want to change it. It by default will show top chat. You may want to change that to the live chat by just clicking the drop down. If you are watching this after the fact and you have questions, you can email us at iso@apu.edu, and Sean or I will get back to you as quickly as we can to answer any questions that you have. And now I would like to introduce Sean Corman, our security expert. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing okay. Kind of rushed around here a little bit, but that's pretty much par for the course.
Sounds like situation normal right there.
Pretty much it is. So last month, we talked about jobs in the security world. And today we're going to talk about some of the certifications that you need to step into those roles.
Right. So, like you said, we talked about that in the jobs. Typically, though, what happens a lot of times is people say, well, I can't get the job if I don't have the experience. I can't get the job if I don't have the cert. And if I look at the certs, there's 1,000,001 security certifications out there. And there are, and it's growing. Some of them are vendor specific. Some of them are organizations. Some of them are international. Some of them are domestic. So you kind of have to have an idea of where you're trying to find the skill set or the sweet spot for you. Are you interested in application security, network security, or are you interested on the policy side even, and risk management components of it, or penetration testing, or being a researcher. And then a new one out there now really is this whole bug bounty thing that a lot of organizations are putting out there. So there are cases out there where people are making a living off of finding bugs and getting paid for it. In some cases, quite handsomely.
I was going to say, how much on average with an organization like Microsoft or Google, what could someone expect to make if they discovered a bug?
So it kind of depends on your turnaround time. Some of the bugs are worth more than others. Some bugs will go for $2,500. Some will go for $25,000. There are also clearinghouses out there now that are not necessarily affiliated with the manufacturers that buy these bugs. So, and one of them we know is associated with nation states. They're paying $250,000, $500,000, $1 million, $2 million for certain kinds of bugs. So you land one of those and sell it, you're pretty much set for a while.
Yeah, for a while. Now I want to back up a step because some people in our audience may not understand the term penetration testing. Can you explain that to someone who's new to security, or they've heard this term pen testing? Kind of define what that means.
So, okay, so to really understand the idea of pen testing, we kind of have to talk a little bit about the difference in hacker types, right? So you have black hat hackers. These are people who break into your systems, usually for financial gain of some sort. That could be a variety of things. They could steal trade secrets. They could steal data to resell it. They could steal, all kinds of things. Or they could even steal and then sell access to high-powered systems, which is another thing we're seeing now in this era of crypto mining for cryptocurrency. But generically, a black hat hacker does illegal stuff for financial gain. A white hat hacker does all the same stuff to protect their organization. So for instance, as a white hat hacker, what I will do is use the same tools and techniques as a black hat to try to break in to APU. Then, if I'm successful, I will work with the engineering team to say, this is what I broke. This is how I broke it. Let's fix it so somebody else doesn't do it that way. So it's that turnaround. It's offense to build a good defense. our engineering team here, as most engineering, outfits do, looks at our network and our services from a defensive standpoint. How do we protect it? Which is absolutely appropriate. That's what they should be doing. My job is to look at it from an offensive perspective. How do I break this? How do I get in? How do I do things I'm not supposed to do? How do I fly under the radar so you don't even know I'm in there? But then the flip side of that is I then work with our engineering team to bolster our defenses so that someone else doesn't do that same thing. And because someone else's intentions aren't going to be mine. Their intentions is to break into our system for gain. So that's a roundabout thing. Pen testing is just that white hat hacker practice. It is, I'm going to take a black hat tool, a tool that's used to break into systems, and I'm going to try to break in to an organization. And then I'm going to document whether or not it worked. And if it worked, I'm going to document what all I got out of it. And then I'm going to give that information over to that firm so they can fix it. So pen test companies, consultants, or people who work for an organization like myself, our job is to use the tools and techniques to try to break in and then help the engineering teams fix it so that nobody else can do that.
I just, like I said, we hear that term, and I just want to make sure everyone in our audience understood what that term means, that a pen tester is a good thing.
Absolutely.
In most cases. I mean, I'm sure there's some black hats who might use the phrase, but.
Well, and that's where things like the bug bounties get a little twisted up, because if you pen test without permission, it's illegal. That's the trick.
Yeah, it's got to have permission in writing.
Yeah, absolutely, in writing. To this day, I still carry a letter that in my backpack that I carry with me at all times that says I am authorized to do the things that I do for APU, because I don't want to be on the other side of the law.
It's a bad place to be. So
I don't look good in orange.
All right, so that's a running joke here. I don't look good in orange. Anyway, keeping on track here. If that was an area that someone wanted to go in, how would they start? What certification would they look at?
So realistically, the best place to start is CompTIA Security Plus. It is just it's an entry-level certification. It teaches you some fundamentals, some basics. Regardless of what your IT knowledge is, it's a good place to start. And it focuses a lot on the defensive side, but it also focuses on the inner workings of systems. How do they work? Because in order to be successful at pen testing or bug bounties or anything like that, you have to have a good understanding of how things are supposed to work, and then how they work when they're doing things they're not supposed to do. Because at the end of the day, code has flaws. And what pen testers do is we look for the flaws, and we try to leverage it into unauthorized access. So the CompTIA Security Plus is a great place to start. Another one on the entry-level side is the GIAC Security Essentials. I would actually recommend both, because between the two, there's overlap. Don't get me wrong, there's overlap between the two, but they have slightly different focuses or foci, and that will help round out that initial bit of experience. If you take those courses and you find that you've really got a taste for this, this is really exciting stuff, you're really interested, then you start getting into other more advanced certifications. And the reason I say this is it's difficult to demonstrate experience, but certifications, at least the ones we're going to talk about today, these have specific barriers to entry that pre-qualify you with a lot of job searches. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Once you've taken the Security Plus and the Security Essentials courses, if you're still interested, if this still is exciting to you. The next one I would look at is by EC Council. It's called the Certified Ethical Hacker. And I carry that and Certified Penetration Tester from EC Council. And it is a very hands-on, it's a 5-day course. You're locked away in a room with an instructor who's a good hacker, and they provide systems for you to break into, and you go through common tools and techniques on how to break into systems. Windows, Linux, Mac, all of it. How to hack wireless. It's a pretty broad and fast-paced week. You'll come away with that, though, with a good understanding of tools. The certification exam is no joke either. It's 2-part. One is just multiple choice and true, false, and some fill in the blank type questions, but mainly multiple choice. Very carefully worded, so you have to read them carefully. The other side is a practical, and the practical varies. When I took it, they gave us a couple of VMs and said, okay, well, here's the parameters for how you have to break into them. Here's their IP addresses, and go. So a whole lot of lack of information, just the basic stuff, and it's really what you would face in the real world. I found a couple systems, I don't know anything about them, but I want to break into them. How do I do it?
And I was going to say, just real quick, VM stands for virtual machines, and that's something we play with a lot in the security side to test things, especially when we get some of those fun emails that have attachments.
Yeah. So up until recently, VMs were known to be completely isolated, meaning you could run multiple virtual machines on one physical machine. That's how the technology works. Part of the security cell for virtual machines is that if you set it up correctly, one virtual machine could not talk to another, and it could not talk directly to the host. Well, there's some new vulnerabilities out there that are threatening that, and players like VirtualBox, Oracle's VirtualBox, VMware, Microsoft's Hyper-V, they're all scrambling now to put fixes in place to address those. But that integrity has been a staple in security for a number of years. The idea that I can have these secure systems that are in a little box, if I blow it up, it's no big deal. So going back to Certified Ethical Hacker, the other component of that course is they do teach you the ethics around hacking, or around white hat hacking, what that means. So they'll get into legal issues, they'll get into policy issues, they'll get into things like documentation that you should always have before starting to work for a client or an organization, even using these tools, and things to be aware of. So it's a great course. I highly recommend it, but it is after you start off on your entry level. They're looking for their requirements to start that course are 2 years of InfoSec experience, which if you've taken the Security Plus and you've taken the GSEC and you're working in some kind of security facing role, you have to justify your experience, and you have to be able to write it up, and they have to approve it. So that's where some of the advanced certs differ, is they have an experience requirement that has to be verified. The next one I wanted to mention is Certified Information Security Manager, or CISM. This is from ISACA, and they require 5 years of cybersecurity and 3 years in security management. So that's 5 years of hands-on hacking and cracking, building defenses, those kinds of things. But then also an additional 3 years in the security management sphere. So you've worked as a SOC manager, security operations center manager, or you're in some form of management in security, overseeing things. And again, your experience has to be verifiable. It's a high-level credential, and it's really focused on the people who want to work at the CISO level, ultimately, or in security risk management. It's focused that way. A newer one on the block is by ISC Squared and is called Certified Cloud Security Professional. Even though it's new, it's taking off like wildfire. And it is focused on building security architectures and security defenses and security testing in the cloud. So many organizations now are moving some or all of their architecture into the cloud-based services with Amazon, with Oracle, with Google Cloud Compute, or others. And that changes the security paradigm completely. Before it was, how do I protect my stuff in my building, on my campus, or in my office complex. Now it's, how do I protect my stuff where I don't even know where it is? I just have an IP address, but physically I have no idea where it is. I know it's in this country. So it's a completely different security paradigm. The minimum requirement there is 5 years of full-time paid cumulative information technology, including at least 3 years of information security and 1 year of cloud computing experience. So you can see the requirements around these more advanced certifications, they're quite serious about it. Because ISC Squared is well known as an international organization that is not affiliated with any vendor, but because of that, they are extremely well known and well respected in the industry. The next one is a certification I carry as well, as Certified Information Systems Security Professional. This requires 5 years of recent full-time professional work experience and 2 or more of the 8 domains of the CISSP Common Body of Knowledge. This is security. The common body of knowledge is security, all security. From physical security, we talk about dogs and fences and doors and locks, to the physical security aspect all the way through all the electronic aspects, PKI, and those kinds of things. It is an extremely broad certification. It is an extremely difficult test to take. I've taken it twice because I let my certs expire once, and I will never do that again because I forgot how horrible the exam is. It is over 300 multiple choice questions, and it's a 6-hour exam. And let me tell you, it's a monster.
So yeah, keep those certs up to date.
Yes. So almost all of these certs have an ongoing professional ed requirement, meaning you have to report to them annually continuing education bits that you're doing. So I have to, as part of my certifications that I carry, report to those organizations different things I'm doing for professional development that keep my certification current and meet their requirements for me keeping my certification current. If I fail to do so, they revoke my cert. That's not a place you want to be because going back and getting it is not fun.
No, not with 6-hour tests involved. So
no, that thing's a nightmare. It's quite legendary. But again, it's also why the number of CISSPs worldwide is so low. It is extremely highly sought after certification in the job market. And we'll show that towards the end here, what are these searches actually look like. But because of that too, it's, ISC Squared has a high degree of integrity with all industries when it comes to security. And they put their seal of approval on professionals that have earned that certification. So for you to get it means you actually have to know what you're doing. And you have the experience and the chops to back it up. The last one is also another one of the higher end ones. This one requires 9 years of security experience, at least 3 of which have a responsibility for a security function. So that translates to 3 years of which are in management, but a total of 9 years of security experience. They self-advertise themselves as the gold standard. They are a higher end cert, and typically people who carry that are CISOs or which are Chief Information Security Officers. sorry for the acronym, with large companies. So you'll find that the CISOs have that, or they're working on it, or that is the role of CISO is someone's goal, and they'll get this certification in preparation for that. But again, these are all, they cover 7 key domains, whereas the CISSP covers 8. Actually, the domains are quite similar, and there's a fair degree of overlap between the 2 exams. ISC squared is just more well known, but they're both equally difficult to go and get. There are a number of other certifications out there that are more specific. There are network security certifications. There are software developer certifications. There are web application security certifications. And all of those are really, really good. But what you want to do is you always want to try to find a certification that is produced by an organization that is not affiliated with a vendor. So, for instance, and there's pros and cons to this. If your goal is to become a Cisco certified security professional, Cisco has all kinds of certs and training to get you there. So does Microsoft, so does Oracle. But you are limited to that product line or that manufacturer, which, for someone like Cisco or Microsoft or Oracle, let's face it, those are huge organizations that aren't going anywhere. If you're interested in going that way, it's not a bad way to go. If you are planning on being more generic and more generalist and being able to plug in wherever and work with a wide variety of things, I would still encourage you to get a couple of those industry certs, but also focus in on the non-affiliated ones because they are widely known internationally and well respected. And they go a long way to helping you with both negotiation for the job and salary when you are negotiating salary for the job. So just food for thought. And then lastly, Holly, one of the questions that I got answered as part of my preparation for this and to answer these questions was, what does it look like in the job search market? How are employers even searching for these certs, and how do I know which ones they're searching for? Well, one of the research sources that I used for this, and we'll provide this in the show notes, had a beautiful little table where they went through a number of the major job boards and looked at the number of searches for a particular search or for a particular certification. So coming in at around 49,000 searches in a year was CISSP.
Right. You can, if you want, Sean, share your screen if you want to bring up that chart.
Let me see here.
If you don't want to, that's okay. We've got about 5 minutes left. So, but almost 50,000, searches for that CISSP. I think I got the acronym close.
Yep. So next up was the CISM by Osaka, and that is the ISACA is the name of the organization. Also an independent organization, not affiliated with a vendor. They totaled out across the 4 different job boards at 20,000 searches. Then we have Certified Ethical Hacker, followed by Security Plus, and lastly, the GSEC by SANS, GIAC. So you can see these high-end certs have, there's a lot of interest in them. They're looking for people with that skill set because it's verifiable. But there's also a strong demand for the lower end certs as well. And those are employers who are out there searching.
So the bottom end certs, the Security Plus, what would someone expect in the job market as far as salary? Because students leaving college or, whatever, they're looking at how am I going to pay the bills?
Yeah. That's a tough one to answer because it depends partially on the industry. partially on the geographic region you're in. So there's a lot of variables that go into that. I would say, a lot of security engineers start out in the 60s to 70s if they have some verifiable experience. If you're starting from the ground zero and you've got nothing but a lot of interest, you may start lower, probably will. I can tell you the higher end certs holders usually operate at 6 figures and above.
Yeah.
Those people who carry the CISM or the CISSP or any of the other higher end certs, they're typically going to command a much better salary range. The work is very different. A lot of CISSPs, for example, you will find them in management jobs, guiding organizations through security and compliance. They're dealing with risk management. So the jobs there are less technical, but they're still highly focused on security, just at a different layer. So,
Sounds good. We didn't have any questions. We did have some people watching, so that's always good. Any last thoughts about certifications and that idea?
It's funny because certifications as a rule have gone through this interesting life cycle going back to the early 90s, even late 80s, where they actually meant something originally. And then there were these cert mills that came out where they ran people through to get all kinds of certs and they had no experience and really no knowledge. But then that's where organizations like ISC Squared and ISACA came from, was they saw a need for the ability to certify individuals and have a high degree of integrity and respect around the certification. So that changed things. Cisco changed things. Microsoft changed things. They all changed, and they wanted their certifications to have value. And to have value, that means that they had to validate the experience of the people who held those certs in some way. Now, that validation, different levels for different certs, right? But what I would say is there is a lot of value to holding an internationally accepted certification. Especially the ones that have ongoing professional requirements, because they require you to stay on top of your game to maintain them. And they're not cheap. The CISSP is well over $1,000 just for the exam. That's not just, that doesn't include the course or the training. That's just the exam. And so there's a significant dollar value associated with this as well. They're not cheap, and they hold a lot of value just because you can put them after your name. So yeah, I would say, depending on the certification, choose carefully, but it has a lot of value both for you as a professional, but also in being able to communicate your experience and your credibility to others.
Sounds good. So that, I think, does it. Again, if you're watching this after the fact and have questions, you can email us at iso@apu.edu, and we'll get back to you as quick as we can. The first Wednesday of next month is July 3rd. So, Sean, we need to think of a good 4th of July security topic for that one. So
ideas.
Until then, we will sign off and talk to you later. Have a great day, everybody.
All right, thanks.